Hello everyone, Rajiv Chopra from the Dusty Mic Chronicles. Last week I spoke to you and gave my thoughts on Osho or Bhagwan Rajneesh's talk on boredom, and I added my little two-bit to that, talking about how you could possibly use boredom in a more productive way to fuel your creativity. I am staying with the topic of creativity for a while in this particular podcast episode as well as the next one. The first talk that I listened to and which changed my perception of Osho was his talk on creativity. Once again, I don't remember much of what he said. Unfortunately, as time passes, we forget. But there is one passage or one segment of that talk which has remained with me. And sometimes these segments are absolutely valuable and they pay for, or they kind of make the investment in time or money absolutely worthwhile. He gave us the example of a traditional Japanese craftsman, and I assume that this was a hypothetical example, but more likely than not, it was a genuine example. In our modern world, which, factories dominate our lives, I found that most managers and most people don't understand the product. To give you an example, I sold cooking oil for many years, and not one of my colleagues actually understood oil. Nobody went out to talk to oil traders, nobody studied oil, nothing. They just took one little aspect of what they thought would be a good marketing story and they just rammed it into the media. And that's how it works because, you're not paid to understand the product. You're paid to sell the product. So if you take the example of a furniture manufacturer, everyone likes to create furniture in a factory, so they understand the factory process, but they don't understand the wood. And when Rajneesh spoke of the traditional Japanese craftsman, he spoke about how this craftsman would go out into the woods or into the forest. He would walk around the woods, he would caress the trees, and he would feel the texture, try and understand what kind of grain was in the wood, and he'd possibly listen to the sound of the tree as he knocked the trunk. And only when he was absolutely satisfied would he cut down the tree, carve the furniture, keeping the grain in mind, and then he would go out and fashion his table or chair or whatever he wanted to make. I listened to a talk by Brooks Jensen, and I often quote him. He spoke of magnum photographers or the magnum photographers who walk around. And he said when you actually observe a magnum photographer, they seem to be doing nothing. But the nothingness, the inaction, is not a passive inaction, it's an active inaction. And these people walk around, they hang around, and they seem to be almost asleep. All of a sudden they burst into action, take lots of photographs, and then they go back into the inaction. If I compare the Japanese craftsmen with these magnum photographers, you might notice a common thread. And the common thread is action follows inaction. Action does not burst out from these people as soon as they reach the scene. They take the time to understand what's happening. The Japanese craftsman takes the time to understand the tree and tries to find the tree that fits his purpose. And that's when magic happens. That's when creativity happens. I write. And these days I write out my podcasts on paper, longhand, much before I actually speak them out or talk. I don't have a set script, but I use my writing as a guide to fashion my thoughts. I do not use a ball pen. I use a fountain pen. I have about 10 or 12 fountain pens. And I remember when I was in school, I absolutely detested fountain pens. All of us detested fountain pens because we thought fountain pens were a bit blur. And we waited for ball pens to enter the market. One day, Bic entered the market. Bic is now out of the market, but most people use ball pens. I use ball pens when I want to write short notes, but I never use a ball pen when I want to write 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. Then I always use a fountain pen. The combination of the weight of the barrel, the nib, the ink, and the paper create a far more satisfying experience and actually helps my brain think. Now, if you like fountain pens, I suggest that you go to the website of Japanese companies like Namiki or Sailor or some of the other ones and just look at the images of their more expensive pens. The workmanship and the craftsmanship of these handmade pens is exquisite. I can't afford them. I'd love to buy one. And I also know that once I buy one, I probably won't use it. I would keep the pen in its box. I would take it out every now and then, admire it with deep love, and put it back. When you see work of great artistry, even in an article that seems as pedestrian as a fountain pen, then you know that you are witnessing something that is absolutely beautiful. You know that you are witnessing the work of a master craftsman. You know that you are witnessing the work of someone who has reached the pinnacle of creativity. As Donovan said, or Donovan sang, slow down world. Slow down, take the time, understand what you're doing, and then start doing whatever it is that you want to do. Speed is not the same as rushing. You can move fast once you have gone through that stage of active inaction, and then you will find your creativity bursting or improving or whatever word you want to use. So that was my little take on Osho and creativity. See you next time. As always, join the conversation, spread the word, leave a comment, subscribe, and if you like it, share the post or share the podcast. See you all.